Imagine waking up in the morning. You look around your room. There is no clock on the wall. You have no phone. You want to meet a friend in the town square.
Maybe there's a chance.
But how do you know when to meet? For thousands of years, humans lived exactly like this. People only knew two times, day and night. But human beings wanted more control. They wanted to capture time. This is the story of how we learned to measure time. It is a story of human intelligence and the deep desire to build a better, organized world. Hi, and welcome to Daily English Origins. Are you learning English? Great! Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started. Look at your wrist, or look at your phone. You can always see the exact time. Today, time controls our lives. It tells us when to wake up. It tells us when to go to work. It tells us when to travel. But strict timekeeping is not natural. Early humans did not have hours or minutes. They only watched the sun. When the sun came up, they worked. When the sun went down, they slept. This was a simple life. But as cities grew and people started trading, they needed a better system. The first great inventors of time lived in ancient Egypt. They built the very first clock. It was called a sundial. A sundial is a simple tool that uses the sun's shadow to tell time. It has a flat plate and a tall stick in the middle. As the sun moves across the sky, the shadow of the stick moves across the plate. The Egyptians painted marks on the plate. Each mark meant a different part of the day. For the first time in history, humans divided the day into smaller pieces. The sundial was a great invention, but it had a big problem. What happened at night? The sun disappeared. The shadows disappeared. And what happened on a rainy or cloudy day? The sundial became completely useless. People realized they needed a clock that did not need the sun. They needed to measure time in the dark. This was a difficult challenge. But humans never stopped trying to solve problems. The next big idea was the water clock. The ancient Greeks called it a clepsydra. A clepsydra is a water clock where water slowly drips out of a bowl to measure time. Imagine a large stone bowl with a tiny hole at the bottom. The water drips out very slowly. Drop by drop, people put marks on the inside of the bowl. As the water level went down, they knew exactly how much time had passed. This clock worked indoors. It worked at night. It was a huge step forward for humanity. People tried other clever ideas too. In ancient China, people used fire to tell time. They burned special sticks called incense. Incense is a material that burns slowly and creates a sweet smell. They knew exactly how long one stick took to burn. In other parts of the world, people used the hourglass. An hourglass is a glass tool filled with sand, where sand falls from the top to the bottom to measure time. Sailors loved the hourglass. They used it on ships because water clocks moved too much and spilled on the rough sea. Hundreds of years passed. In Europe, religion became very powerful. Religious men lived together in big stone buildings. These buildings are called monasteries. A monastery is a quiet place where religious men, called monks, live and work together. The monks had very strict rules. They had to pray 7 times a day. They even had to pray in the middle of the night. But they had a big problem. How could they wake up at the exact right time in the total dark? The monks desperately needed an alarm clock. Water clocks were not good enough for them. In the cold European winter, the water in the bowl froze into solid ice. Sand clocks were also bad because they needed a person to turn them over every hour. The monks needed a real machine. They needed a heavy device made of metal. They needed a clock that worked by itself, using heavy weights and wheels. This strong desire for a reliable clock pushed human engineering forward. It led to the greatest invention in timekeeping, the mechanical gear. The monks needed a heavy machine, so inventors created the first mechanical clock. It did not use water or sand, it used gears. A gear is a metal wheel with teeth on the edge that turns other wheels. These early clocks used heavy weights pulling on a long rope to turn the gears. They did not have a face. They did not have hands. They only had a large bell. The bell rang loudly to call the monks to pray. This changed the world forever. Machines were now doing the work of the sun. Soon the mechanical clock left the quiet monastery. Kings and city leaders wanted these amazing machines. They built giant clock towers in the middle of their cities. These towers were very tall and beautiful. Everyone in the city could hear the loud bells. A giant clock became a symbol of power. The city with the best clock was the strongest and smartest. For the first time, regular people did not just look at the sky. They listened to the bells to know when to start working and when to go home to their families. These early tower clocks were impressive, but they had a big weakness. They were very inaccurate. Inaccurate means not exact or correct. A clock could lose or gain an hour every single day. Because of this, early clocks only had one hand to show the hour. There was no minute hand. The idea of a minute was too small to matter. People lived slowly. But science and business were growing fast. People needed a clock that did not make mistakes. They needed perfect time. The great turning point happened in the year 1656. A clever scientist named Christian Huygens invented the pendulum clock. A pendulum is a heavy weight on a stick that swings back and forth. Huygens realized that a pendulum always takes the exact same amount of time to swing. This steady swinging motion controlled the gears perfectly. Suddenly, clocks only lost 1 minute a week. Now, clocks finally had a minute hand. Humans were dividing the day into tiny pieces. Before we continue the story, I have a quick question. Are you enjoying this story about the history of time? If you are, please hit the like button and subscribe to Daily English Origins. It helps us make more great stories for you. Now, let's get back to the great struggle for perfect time. As nations grew richer, they sent big ships across the dangerous oceans. They wanted to trade goods and explore new lands. But sailors had a terrible problem called longitude. Longitude is your exact position from east to west on a map. To find longitude, a sailor needed to know the exact time back home. But pendulum clocks did not work on the ocean. The rough sea waves made the pendulum swing wildly. Because of this, hundreds of ships crashed into rocks. Thousands of sailors died. The ocean was winning the war. The British government offered a huge amount of money to anyone who could solve this ocean problem. A man named John Harrison accepted the challenge. He was a poor carpenter. A carpenter is a person who builds things out of wood. Rich scientists laughed at him. They thought only a famous scientist could solve the great sea problem. But John Harrison was very determined. He spent 40 years building the first marine chronometer. A chronometer is a highly accurate watch that works safely on a moving ship. He used special metals and springs. He finally beat the ocean. He saved thousands of lives. John Harrison proved that accurate time could be small. Soon watchmakers learned to build tiny, perfect gears. They created the first pocket watches. At first, these watches were very expensive. Only kings and very rich businessmen could buy them. Having a gold watch in your pocket meant you were important and powerful. But slowly, watchmakers learned to make them faster and cheaper. The power of time was moving from the high city towers down to the hands of ordinary people. Time was changing from a public sound into a personal tool. In the 1800s, the world changed again. This was the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution is a time in history when people stopped making things by hand at home and started using big machines in factories. Factory owners needed strict rules. They paid workers by the hour. A worker had to arrive at the factory exactly on time. If a worker was late, he lost his money. Time became money. The clock became a strict boss for thousands of people. Next, inventors built powerful steam trains. Trains moved incredibly fast between cities. But this created a huge problem. Every single city had its own local time based on the sun. Because of this, a train schedule was impossible to read. To fix this chaos, leaders created time zones. A time zone is a large area of the world that agrees to use the exact same official time. The powerful trains forced the whole world to connect and share the same clock. For a long time, men kept watches safely hidden in their pockets. But the world became a dark place during the First World War. Soldiers fought in deep holes in the ground called trenches. A trench is a long, narrow ditch in the dirt where soldiers hide to stay safe from bullets. Soldiers needed to look at their watches very quickly to attack the enemy at the exact same moment. So they tied small watches to their wrists. The wristwatch was born from the terrible struggle of war. In the 1960s, watch companies discovered something amazing. They stopped using tiny metal gears. They started using quartz. Quartz is a hard, clear rock that vibrates perfectly when electricity touches it. Quartz watches used small batteries instead of springs. They were very cheap to make, and they almost never lost a single second. Suddenly, every person on earth, rich or poor, could buy a perfect watch. Perfect time belonged to everyone. But scientists still wanted more power over time. They wanted absolute perfection for space travel and computers. So they invented the atomic clock. An atomic clock is a massive machine that measures the invisible energy inside tiny atoms. It is so perfect that it will not lose 1 second in millions of years. Today, atomic clocks control our satellites and our GPS. GPS is a modern system that uses satellites in space to tell you exactly where you are on a map. From the simple shadow of a stick in Egypt to the invisible energy of an atom, humans fought a long, hard war to conquer time. We started by looking up at the sun. Now, the exact time is glowing brightly on your phone screen. We built an amazing system of discipline, science, and global connection. The clock is the greatest tool we ever built to organize human life. The story of the clock is a beautiful story of human resilience. We lived in darkness, but we used our minds to bring order to the world. We conquered the dangerous oceans and connected the continents. The clock reminds us that humans can solve any problem if we never give up. But it also teaches us a deeper, more emotional lesson. The clock can measure our hours, but it cannot tell us how to live. Time is our most valuable treasure. Once a second is gone, it never comes back. It is up to us to spend our time beautifully, with purpose, and with love. Hey there, just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.